The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Let's listen as Lorraine Lapointe, coach, therapist, educator, speaker, and founder of Head Heart Synergy, brings together another enlightened guest to inspire and motivate us to move forward, achieve our dreams and desires, so that we experience midlife awakening.
And I'm your host, Lorraine Lapointe. Today we'll enjoy another candid conversation that reveals how to bring back a sense of balance and how to find forward focus. Today, take just a few moments to join us as we explore the possibilities and the perspectives that provide us with greater inner peace, power, passion, and purpose. Because that's what I call living at the edge of fulfillment in a midlife awakening. Well, hello and welcome. And earlier this morning, well, actually it was a few minutes ago, and it might be morning for you, or it could be afternoon, or it could be evening. Anyway, welcome. But a few moments ago, I went live in Book of the Face, and I mentioned that a welcome to our fans who are in India and Australia, New Zealand. However, I was gently reminded that we are also being enjoyed in Europe, in Canada, and the US. So wherever you are in the world, welcome today. And our self-leadership is what we're focusing on today. And it's so important because how do you know where you're going if you don't look ahead within yourself? And without great self-leadership, people tend to blindly stumble around without a clear plan, and it can wind up feeling like being stressed out with too many responsibilities, just too much going on, where we can get frustrated, misdirected, or that horrible feeling of being misunderstood. Good morning, Christina. Nice to see you. The other thing that happens is we can feel that feeling of being drained from going in circles, feeling like we're not accomplishing anything. Well, our guest today knows very well how to provide support in these kinds of circumstances. And today she's going to share the 3 R's of empathy. And one thing I've heard her say many times is how it's important to lead yourself first. And with that focus comes more joy, more optimism, so you find greater sense of fulfillment in life. And she also knows that any organization or individual to shine brightly in the world, you need great leadership. And it helps us shine when we know that we're doing something important, something that lights us up and puts a smile on our face. Well, here is an easy way to do just that right here for you, all of our listeners and watchers. So please participate in the show and shape this episode into something that speaks to your heart. And if you hear anytime a comment, or even if you're listening on the podcast and downloading, this is the Edge of Fulfillment Show. My company, Head Heart Synergy, has created an opportunity to support a project through B1G1.com. And B1G1 makes it easy to make life better for someone else on the planet who needs it. And so the one way that we are making life better for them is for every single comment, we provide a day's access to clean water wherever it's needed most. And this means when you comment or you ask a question or you listen to the podcast, you're actually helping someone else in the world to live better. And I want to thank you for that, because you're helping me to help others as well. And the goal is to hit 1,000 impacts before the end of the summer. And we're already at 600. So I think we can make it. Don't you? Great. Anyway, so keep putting those comments into the chat or ask your questions, and I think we'll get there. And by the way, for those I haven't met yet, I'm Lorraine Lapointe. This is the Edge of Fulfillment Radio and Talk for TV, and it's my mission to help compassionate, service-minded women to tame that toxic inner self-talk, the one that gives makes us give too much, that makes us give to too many people for too long. And then we get that feeling like, oh, I've tried it all. And I thought I would be able to have some answers by now. And after all those years of sacrifice, what I really know and what I really found is that women want to feel balanced, healthy relationships. They want to feel calm and confidently in control, and they want the freedom to build a life that they love. And it is achievable. And as my gift to you at the end of the show, I'm going to post a quiz so that you can tell what the number one focus is that would prove your life satisfaction score. So listen and watch for that, okay? Because another thing is we love to win prizes. And our first prize today will be meeting our guest, Doni Landefeld. But before I introduce her, let me congratulate Lori Pagaro, who was the winner of an Amazon gift card, who was sponsored by last week's guest, Dr. Jane Cheng. And Jane, if you'll recall, spoke to us about changing our money mindset. So last week, Lori took note of the 5 special words she heard that were sprinkled throughout the show. And then she added them into the email with the subject line of contest in the subject line. Or you can put those 5 words in the comments. And now it's your turn. So today, simply keep track of those words and we'll let you know what they are. And then at the end, put them all 5 words in the comment or email them to me, and you will be eligible for another Amazon gift card. And now I am eager to introduce you to our guest this week because she inspires that lead yourself first. But first, I want to tell you, you've already heard the first word of the day. So write this down. You've heard the word empathy. And today we're talking about the 3 R's for empathy. So to give you a little time to do that and to remember to invite your family and friends to join us right now, let's take a little break. So stay with us and come back to us to the Edge of Fulfillment on W4WN. That's the Women4 Women Network Radio and Talk for TV. And we will be right back.
Did you know video is the future on content? There are 3 good reasons why video is the future of content. Number 1, videos are often more engaging than simple pictures or music alone. Number 2, it's much easier to tell your story through video. Number 3, because we love to watch video, they go viral much faster. Hey, notice you're still watching right now. See how well it works. Next time we can play your video here instead. Ask me how. Shine online on Talk4 TV and W4WN Radio.
Hey, are you looking for a brighter future? Wishing for greater calm, clarity, and confidence? What if you knew an inside job was the answer? Your mission: stop the inner burn, gain mental fitness so you get more out of life. Imagine in about 15 minutes a day for just 6 weeks. Come on, we'll show you how. Don't miss it. Just go to www.lorraine.gives/M-Fitness and join us right now.
Hey, welcome back. So just a reminder, we are running a contest this week for you to win an Amazon gift card for hearing and writing down the 5 special words that we mentioned through the show. So don't add them yet. As a reminder, you've already heard the first word, empathy. So you're just listening for the other 4 words as we continue here on the Edge of Fulfillment on W4WN. That's the Women4 Women Network. And we're on radio and Talk for TV. And now I'm really excited for you to meet Doni. And let me tell you a little bit about her story, and then we'll pop her on screen. So Doni moved to Florida in 2004, and she's an outstanding musician, and she plays, she's the principal player of the double bass for a local symphony, and she acts as board president. And she's amazing. I actually went to Florida and had the joy of being at a performance with her, and it was wonderful. Doni has a very long and impressive collection of degrees and certification in areas such as education, psychology, coaching, and she created Metamorphosis Coaching and Consulting in 2010 with a specialty in leadership. She also looks at emotional intelligence and mental resilience, and she's active in several leadership roles within her community. And one of the things that I do know is that for her charitable work, in one event, she raised more than 6 figures. That's a lot of money for scholarships and musical outreach. So I count her as a friend and a colleague, and I'm honored to introduce her right now. Welcome, Doni.
Hi, Lorraine. Great to see you again. I'm so honored and excited to be with you today.
Yeah, so good to have you here. So I just gave our listeners, I can't talk today. I just gave our listeners and watchers a little bit about your love of music and the importance of self-leadership, but I know that there's lots more in your bio, and I love our listeners to know more about your personal story. You know, what's behind the success. So where would you like to begin?
Oh boy. Well, do we want to dive in with a story about empathy or, music has always been my first love, though, like so many of us, we evolve over time, and now it's a very passionate hobby. And I'm currently leveraging my background, kind of like you, with a background in education and then also the psychology component, to really help business leaders unleash their potential. And I do that across 3 different areas. First is to enhance performance, become better at whatever our work is. And then also focusing on relationships, because we all have many relationships in our lives at home and work, and they can be messy. So this is where empathy comes in and is very important. So focusing on creating healthier relationships is a second piece. And then I also consider well-being part of that trifecta, because when we are our best, we can give our best and be the most effective servants. So that's kind of why I focus on that whole lead yourself first, because mastery of personal leadership really helps us to bring out the best in everyone else in our sphere of influence. So
I'm curious. Was there a time in your life where you didn't lead yourself first, and that led you to discover that?
Well, I will say, in terms of the well-being portion, yes. And I learned the hard way, like so many do. You're working and running on autopilot and not putting your well-being first as it really needs to be. And it kind of led to burnout. And that was in my former career in academia. So I was stressed. I was working 14-hour days. I had a 2-hour commute on top of it. I wasn't eating as healthily as I could have. I was overweight. And so, I was not leading myself first in terms of my well-being. And there's a ripple effect to that, because we really can't give our best to others when we're not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And quite often that seems to be the symptom that we notice first, isn't it? The effect that we're having on others or not having on others that we want to have when we're not leading ourselves first.
Right.
Have you noticed that in your clients or your friends?
Absolutely. And I continue to see it all the time. I have one former client who used to say, you slow down and you die. And I thought, it's kind of the opposite of that. You slow down and you thrive.
Isn't that interesting? Slow down and you die. So the inner negative voice was driving that person forward at such a rate that they actually believed that they could die if they slow down. Like there's a terrible lie.
Absolutely. And we're now realizing what this wasn't the case maybe 10 years ago, but we're now realizing there's so much more research that workaholic and working ourselves to death is no longer a badge of honor. And there's a tremendous toll that takes place on ourselves and then all the others in our lives. So there's no merit in doing more.
Yeah, getting to the end of your life and looking back and going, wow, I wish I'd worked harder.
Right.
I don't think it happens.
No.
But you might get there and say, wow, I wish I'd had more time with my kids.
Exactly.
Or I wish I'd taken more time with other people who are more, that were really important to us.
Exactly. Be there for the moments that really matter.
I love that message. So lead yourself first.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what lights you up as you step into your best self these days?
I love it when you just see the light bulb go off in someone else's world. Kind of when they have that epiphany or breakthrough or that aha moment. And for me, that's when I've realized I've created some sort of a shift. I've had some sort of a breakthrough and a real meaningful impact on someone. To me, and that's kind of my personal mission statement, which filters over into my professional mission statement, which is to be of the best service that I can to make a meaningful difference in someone's lives across those three areas, that the performance, the relationships, and the well-being. So when that shift occurs, it's validating for me. I know I've made a difference and that I've turned something on that was maybe either dormant or not realized.
That's wonderful. And if I can reflect back when I watched you perform in the symphony, and I could get that sense when all of you work together so beautiful in synergy. Good morning, John. And you just seem to lose yourself into the flow. Can you say a little bit to our listeners and about what that's like?
Sure. And that's, being in that flow or in that mindset where you're just you're effortlessly performing, and it seems like there's not a whole lot of work going into it because it's carefree, it's enjoyable. This filters over into so many areas of life, and I use it with my clients too, because not only is it when we're doing something that's a hobby or enjoyable, but when we maybe work a little less hard to do something that matters, isn't that more fulfilling? Isn't that more gratifying? And yes, being in a symphony orchestra, it's a great analogy for so many things in life. When we're all working together, we're listening closely to one another, we're following the direction of the conductor, and it's just a beautiful thing. It's just the art and science.
Yeah, and when you said the word conductor, it just, that we need, sometimes we need leadership. Like if there are more, we need self-leadership always. Mm-hmm. But when a group of people want to work together, there needs to be good leadership to get the group moving in the direction they want. And that's the role of the conductor in the symphony, right? Very
much so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to have that North Star.
Absolutely. Or else it's like herding cats. I remember being in a classroom and sometimes I'd walk in and the poor teacher looked like she was herding cats.
Right.
If the group of people aren't truly aware what the vision is of where they're heading, then that chaos, that sense of conflict and fogginess tends to settle in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to change and ask you a tough question.
Okay.
What's the best mistake you've ever made?
Oh boy. Best mistake.
Sometimes when we make what we consider a mistake, mm-hmm. then we later look back and we realize the value of it. Mm-hmm. So I just wonder,
Okay.
Perhaps that's a vulnerable question. But
Sure. No.
Pass.
I think I've got one.
Okay.
So I like to say you either win or you learn. And learning experiences really do help us to become stronger, better, more proficient, just the better ideal version of ourselves. So I love living in Florida. We've been here now, we're in our 18th year. And after in my former role before that, when we were still living in Pennsylvania, I was in this job I referred to earlier, where got to the point where I was pretty much burned out. And in retrospect, when I look back at accepting that position, I didn't enjoy where we lived at the time. My husband was also in a role where it wasn't fulfilling his self-actualization and needs, and we were just not in the best headspace. I'll call that. So, do I have regrets for taking that last assignment, that last position? Maybe so. However, I learned a lot. And it's really helped to make me a better person. It's helped to make me a better coach and consultant. It's certainly, on this topic of empathy, it has made me a more empathic person to relate to others more effectively, to communicate. So I look at that now as, okay, it was a blip on the chart, but it's okay because I learned a lot, and it's just made me a better person.
Yeah, I wonder if our listeners are relating to that sometimes they have found that a mistake, what appears to be a mistake, actually has, that proverbial silver lining, finding the gift in what first appears to be something that, you wish you hadn't done. But if that's true for listeners or watchers, go ahead and pop a yes, I agree in the chat so that we can see that we can get those comments going and get that water pouring around the world. But is there ever a time that you thought, oh, I wish I'd known then what I know now, years ago?
Oh, absolutely. And I can think of another.
Thanks, Christina.
Sorry?
I just said, thanks, Christina. Christina said, oh, yes.
Absolutely. Where to begin? But I can share another. It's kind of a comical experience now. My husband and I, this is still when we were living back in Pennsylvania, we decided we were going to try our hand in the landlord world and purchased a 5-unit apartment building. Oh my gosh, when I look back at that experience now, and I have so many stories, I could probably write a book on all of the tenants that you don't want to have and their stories and drama and just the nightmares. Had I known then what I know now from that experience, yeah, we definitely will not be plunging into any sort of opportunity like that. Not at least not at that level that we did. But again, it was another wonderful learning experience. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about other people, the dynamics of other people, how people live, and what we can, and also about anticipating. So it was another learning experience.
Yeah, and as painful as they are, sometimes it's the best. And I can relate to the real estate piece. I've owned some property myself and had a few situations where it's funny because we assume everyone lives a life similar to our own, and yet there are many people who choose to live very differently than others. One of my tenants, chose to live on the edge of being bankrupt all the time. And how painful. But yeah, you certainly get to see how others function in the world.
Yes, many different varieties. So there are some doozies.
Yeah. When you moved from Pennsylvania to Florida, it sounds like that was a big chapter in your life. Did you have to leave things behind?
No, not really. In fact, we were so fortunate, and I have to share with you, we never, if you would have asked 20 years ago, would we consider moving to Florida, I would have laughed. We considered Florida a place where pretty much everyone moves to retire. More seniors than there are people with young kids like we had at the time. But what brought us here was a multi-generational family vacation. My husband's parents had a condo at the time, and they talked us into coming down. And my parents also joined us as well. And long story short, we fell in love. Again, we were in that place in our former roles where we just weren't feeling fulfilled. We weren't extremely gratified. And we decided to take the plunge and move here. And no, we didn't have to leave anything behind because my husband's parents were already here. And then if that wasn't wonderful enough, my parents followed us as well. So there was a period of time, and this was back in 2004 when we moved here. My in-laws decided to move from their condo to a house. We moved into a house. My parents moved into a house. We were moving experts. We moved in March. Another one moved in April, May. It was 3 consecutive months of moving, and it was crazy, but very, very gratifying. So the only thing we really left behind, unfortunately, was some friends and family. So we make it a point to go back to Pennsylvania and New Jersey about once per year, and family will come here. And, Florida's a nice place to take a vacation to. So we always welcome our friends and family.
I was just going to say, and I've been to your place in Florida, and it's lovely.
Yep.
And these days, with the virtual world the way it is, I find that it really doesn't matter where in the world you are, because you can't, it's not the same as being in person, of course. We'd all prefer to be in person, but connections worldwide. That's why I mentioned at the top of the show, we have listeners everywhere. And sometimes it's so easy to forget that we're just seconds away these days from connecting with people wherever they are.
Right. It's truly a flat world. And if there was one gift in the mess of COVID, it's most of us overcame that anxiety or fear of technology. And now most people are Zoom pros and or Skype, and it's really changed the dynamics of how we communicate.
It certainly has. And I'm very grateful for the ability to connect with people all over the world.
I am too.
And spread the message of lead yourself first.
Yep.
And so I think I'm going to take a little break for our listeners and our watchers at this point and have them think about how are you leading yourself first?
Okay.
And we will be right back here on The Edge of Fulfillment on W4WN and Talk for TV. So we'll stay tuned.
Mental fitness, the missing X factor for enhancing performance, achievement, and success. Mental fitness empowers you with the magic of 3: stabilized mood, peace of mind, deeper relationships. Time to make it happen? Grow the self-command muscle. Intercept your self-defenses. Build your inner wisdom. In less than 15 minutes a day, gain the missing X factor. Let me show you how.
There comes a time we wonder, what's next? For women like us, as we stand at the edge of fulfillment, are you feeling unsettled, restless, not quite right? That's midlife awakening. Are you looking for fulfillment? Or to squeeze more juice out of life? Midlife awakening at the edge of fulfillment, don't miss it. We understand. By phone or laptop, wherever you are, come join us. Friday 10 a.m. Eastern Time, on Head Heart Synergy Facebook business page, or here, on the Women4 Women Network Radio and Talk 4 TV.
Welcome back, and we are talking today with my guest, Doni Landefeld. And Doni, this show is about the 3 R's of empathy. But before I get you to launch into that, we've actually talked before the break about 2 other special words, and I want to give those to our listeners and watchers. So the first word that you heard was empathy, but the second is understanding, which we talked about, and connecting. So you've now had 3 out of 5. And so let's chat a little bit about the 3 R's of empathy.
Great. So you kind of gave us a good segue into the 3 R's, because empathy is all about understanding and connecting with others. And one of the areas where people kind of get stuck is empathy. It helps to understand what empathy is not. So I don't know if this is the best time to maybe kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about what it isn't, because sometimes when we talk about what it isn't, it clarifies what it is. So go for it.
Right. Okay, so so far we know understanding and connecting is really, really important. And empathy is all about, there are 3 ways that empathy impacts us. First is in how we communicate. And healthy communication is something that a lot of times is a goal for people. And then healthy communication affects our relationships. And then that really affects trust, which is a building block of how we get things done at work and at home. So keeping that in mind now, let's take a look at what empathy is not. So empathy is not feeling sorry for someone. And this is where we can get confused with empathy and sympathy. Because a lot of times sympathy is feeling sorry for someone. We're feeling sympathy for. Empathy is about experiencing something with someone, not for them. So there's a big difference between that whole empathy and sympathy. Empathy is also not about agreeing with other people. And in fact, it's so important when you are empathizing to suspend judgment. So you don't have to be concerned about whether someone's right, wrong, something is good or bad. It's merely showing that someone's thoughts and feelings have mattered. So that kind of gets us started.
Yeah, I love that. And I was trying to catch the comment that John made. Very important key points. Thanks, John. Yes. Yeah. And good morning, Angeline. Yeah, absolutely. Huge difference between feeling sorry for someone, which you said is sympathy, and helping them experience something, which is empathy. It's sometimes when people are going through such harsh, difficult times, others avoid them. And I think they get avoided, or, you wish you helped, but you don't know how to help. And that is almost a fear of empathy, because, I'm not sure if I'm heading in the right space here, but, I think that's because people confuse sympathy and empathy.
Yeah. And I think it's also there are some people out there who just don't feel comfortable with any type of negative or conflict whatsoever. So they'd rather be like that proverbial ostrich and kind of put the head in the sand. So I'm going to give an example here of why empathy is so important.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to be a little vulnerable. I'm going to give one of my examples from earlier. This is about 20 years ago. But the message that I'd like to send with everyone is, if we're not using empathy for our advantage in our communications and our relationships and that building trust, remember those 3 things, is people will stay stuck in their stories. So if you're hearing someone, this can be anywhere in our sphere of influence. It can be at home, at work, anywhere in the community, our friends, family. If someone is staying stuck in their story over and over and over again, they're complaining or whatever it is, it's because we have not been empathic. And so I'll give you an example. This goes back in this last role, the one where I was getting pretty burned out.
Yeah.
And I worked at a technical college. I was academic dean. I had a lot of faculty and staff working for me. One of the departments was technical. So think computer, IT, all that good stuff. I am not a computer IT person. So I'll just state that right off the bat. So it was a little bit more difficult for me to relate to those professionals just because I don't have the technical background. One of the things that was really important for my technical faculty was to keep going for certification after certification, because technology is always evolving and changing, right? We know this. It's just one day it's this, the next day something else new comes along. That was a lot of pressure on my faculty to always be going for these certifications. And I remember 2 instructors in particular who I could tell that the pressure was really getting to them. And Lorraine, I was a busy person too, and I know I didn't hear and listen at the level that was deep enough to get them unstuck. So what happened? Fast forward a few weeks, a few months, and it came time for accreditation renewal for the institution. You probably are a little bit aware of this with an academic background. Whenever you go through an accreditation for any type of educational institution, it is stressful. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of processes and systems. One of the things that came out was an audit of faculty credentials and certifications. Bringing this story to an end, 2 of my instructors were found out to falsify certification credentials.
Oh.
What did I have to do? I had to terminate them. It was really, really painful. The only thing in my world that is more painful than firing someone is laying somebody off.
Both very difficult circumstances because everyone counts on their income.
Right.
And yeah, as a leader, sometimes we have to do the tough stuff, right? But we can still do the tough stuff with empathy, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And that's where the 3 R's come in.
Yeah. So even when you're doing something as tough as firing someone for falsifying records or having to lay them off, you can do it in a way that is humanely empathetic. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Doni. Often our listeners love it when we pull an oracle card. And so are you game for that?
Sure.
All right. Because I'm just noticing our time is going so quickly and I'd love to get this in. So I'm just going to shuffle the cards.
Okay.
And you go ahead and say stop. And
okay.
Then
All right. Well, it just occurred to me while you're shuffling that we really haven't, I haven't planted that seed yet about the 3 R's. So I'll give a quick little overview of that. So the first one, and we might want to go into more detail. I'm happy to do that. First one is read. And then the second one is to relate. And then the third one, which is kind of optional, is to redirect.
Well, do we want, instead of pulling the card, should we explore let's explore the 3 R's a little bit, because I'm getting a sense that there's some juiciness there for our listeners.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You got it. All right. So for the first R, in terms of reading other people, this is breaking down the first step of demonstrating that we have some sort of genuine interest and care in the other person. And that is important. So even if you have to fake it to make it, there is a necessity to have that connection to read and relate. So how do we do that? We listen very deeply. We listen at a level that is beyond our own self-interest. I call this the platinum rule. It's really what lights other people up and what matters to them instead of what matters to us. So then to relate, which is kind of the next R, it's important to demonstrate that what we've listened to has been accurate. So that's kind of that connecting back to that individual, relating to them. Ways you can do that are kind of two different ways. First is to either summarize or paraphrase. And it doesn't have to be any kind of a long story, but to really demonstrate that we've heard accurately at that person's level. And then body language can also help, because that's kind of that reinforcer for what we're saying. It shows us that we're human beings, we're connecting with someone else. A lot of times mirroring the same type of body language is the best way to go, because we like to be around people that are similar to ourselves, and mirroring that body language back is one way to do that, as long as it's not offensive or, inappropriate.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I've noticed, well, many of us have noticed that when someone really leans in, when another leans in, you're having a very good heart-to-heart conversation, right? But if someone leans out when you lean in, it's a clear indicator that you're not making a connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very much. And the same could be said for having open hand gestures, as opposed to the, folded arm, closed up. That's typically a sign that someone's being guarded and is defending something.
Yeah.
And so then there's the third R. And then this one is kind of optional, because it depends on the situation or the circumstance. And I can give an example of this one if we have time, but the third R is redirect.
Lovely. So go ahead and give an example.
Okay. So I had one client, works for the government, and we all know in government sometimes things can't be as flexible, or there's a little bit of rigidity. This person had to work with another individual who she thought was very toxic and negative, and would always complain, and it would suck this person down to a very low level, not motivated, a real morale killer. So I helped her. I said, okay, first we're going to read the other person, then we're going to relate. Those are the first two steps. And then once we know we have accomplished that, and that other person is kind of in that safe zone, so they're feeling psychologically safe, then we find some common ground, and we use that to redirect the conversation and get out of that pit of despair, if you will. So the example that she used, they both enjoyed talking about sports cars. So after listening, that whole reading and summarizing back to relate, then find that common ground about talking about sports cars and kind of making it more positive, then it's, okay, let's redirect and get down to brass tacks and talk about our work assignment. And it seems kind of simplistic, but it just made a tremendous difference in this individual's performance and productivity, not to mention her stress level, because we all know how attitudes are contagious. And if you let it, someone's negativity will just suck you down in a vortex of just, we don't want to go there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I love what you're sharing here, because this can be applied to anywhere in your life. I mean, a mom with kids, how often do we sometimes gloss over what our kids are saying? And instead, if we can just think of those 3 R's and read them to see whether they need some attention and relate to them to see where they're at right now, then the redirection, I think, tends to be taken in a little easier.
Absolutely. But the redirect can't happen until we first have read and related. And that gets people unstuck from either their story or their situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see if this card, because I'm going to flip the first card. Let's see if this card, because I'm finished shuffling, relates to that at all.
All right.
I don't know if it does. The card that came up is Earth Magic. So it's a lovely card with feet on the ground, and it's Earth Magic. So let's have a little read.
Okay.
So it says, everything you are, your evolution and the successful manifestation of your dreams begins below the surface of consciousness. Until an idea comes and conviction takes hold and something meaningful can be planned. When you mindfully connect, you create the power to form a tiny essence of spark between people. The message is to trust the seed that you've planted. The earth is consciousness. Slow down. We were talking about that before. Slow down. Trust the connection that you are making and send the intention so that it becomes nourished and growing. Great magic is found underground, working its way to the surface when we delve into more blessings than we could ever imagine and just let it happen.
Wonderful. I love it.
I love the connections and trust each time we read the oracle card that there's a message there for you, for me, for our listeners. So Earth Magic. But I want to thank you, Doni. We're running out of time, and just if there's any message that you'd like to share that you haven't been able to at this point, now would be a great time.
Okay. Well, if we were going to just kind of wrap this up, I would say there's a great quote by Dr. Stephen Covey, the late Stephen Covey, that really captures the essence of empathy, and that's to seek first to understand, only then to be understood.
Oh, beautiful. Seek first to understand, then understood. Yeah. Such wisdom. There is so much wisdom that has gone before us. And I want to thank you for your wisdom today, Doni. It's been absolutely marvelous to have you here. And I also want to thank our listeners and our watchers, those who are here live and those who are catching us in the replay. I want to thank you for being with us today on The Edge of Fulfillment. And here today, which is Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and we're here each week on W4WN and Talk for TV. And today we've explored some deep questions, played a little bit with ideas for how to create a little more meaning and empathy in your life. And it occurs to me that I did not give the last two words, special words. So our last two words were sympathy, that you mentioned earlier, Doni, and the last one was stuck. So we've actually had all five. I'll just go over them for those who were or jotting them down, put them in the chat now. So it was empathy, sympathy, stuck, with understanding and connecting. So we've had those 5 words. And hopefully you will be the winner of the Amazon gift card from the draw, and listen for next week when we do the announcement. But I want to thank all those who commented today and helped provide fresh water to someone who needed it in the world. And for those who want to email me, go ahead. You can email me with the subject line contest at support@headheartsynergy.com. And I believe at the beginning of the show, I mentioned a gift of a quiz. So the quiz can be found at lorraine.gives/elements quiz. And it was the #1 focus that will improve your life satisfaction score. So go ahead and take that quiz now, and then drop me a line about what you discover. And at this point, I'd like to say I am your host, Lorraine Lapointe. This is The Edge of Fulfillment, sponsored by Head Heart Synergy, reminding you that at the edge of fulfillment, we have a choice. You can stay on the edge, getting always what you've always got, or you can become a little bit courageous, a little bit empathetic even, and move beyond the edge to get what you really want. So I'll see you next week.